Cozy season is ahead, and you'll be spending way more time inside. Is your home ready? Don't worry. With Wayfair, you can upgrade your space without breaking the bank. Score up to 70% off during their Labor Day clearance on furniture, area rugs, mattresses, and more. Plus, surprise flash deals you can't miss. Whether it's one room or the whole house, Wayfair has pieces for every style and budget. Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 7th at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Out beyond Faversham, where the creek winds towards the Swale, the land begins to lose its shape. Water slips through narrow channels in the marsh. Mudflats stretch towards the horizon. And on winter evenings, the wind comes unhindered across the estuary. Standing amongst this lonely landscape is the Shipwrights Arms. For centuries, this part of Kent belonged to sailors, fishermen, bargemen, and shipwrights. Faversham Creek connected the town with the Thames and the wider world beyond, while the marshes surrounding it could be unforgiving. Fog could hide the channels, tides could cut off familiar paths, and the mud itself could trap anyone unfortunate enough to stray too far from firm ground. Against that landscape, the lights of an inn would once have meant warmth, shelter, and safety. And according to an old story attached to the Shipwrights Arms, one man came desperately close to reaching all three. It happened sometime during the 19th century. A ship had foundered in the Swale. Somewhere in the darkness, amongst the wind and freezing water, the vessel went down. Most of those aboard were lost, but one sailor survived. He managed to reach the mudflats. Cold and exhausted, with his clothes soaked through, he began struggling towards the shore. Each step carried him through thick mud, while the winter wind swept across the open marsh. There was little to guide him until, somewhere ahead, he saw a light. It came from a small weather-boarded building. The sailor dragged himself towards it. By the time he reached the Shipwrights Arms, he must have been close to collapse. He climbed to the entrance and knocked upon the door. Inside, someone heard him. But it was late, and whoever had come knocking at such an hour was not welcome. The sailor knocked again. The owner refused to open the door and shouted for the stranger to go away. Eventually, the knocking stopped. The following morning, when the door was opened, the sailor was lying dead upon the doorstep. He had survived the sinking of his ship. He had crossed the mudflats in darkness. He had reached the light he had been following across the marsh. He had simply arrived on the wrong side of a locked door. From that night onwards, the Shipwrights Arms had another resident. The sailor who appears inside the pub is described as a thickset man, dressed for the sea, wearing a heavy reefer jacket and a peaked cap. In some versions of the story, his eyes have an unnatural reddish glow. More often, his arrival is announced by something far less dramatic. A smell. Rum, tar, and tobacco. It can appear suddenly inside the building, strong enough to be noticed and then disappear without an obvious source. Sometimes it is accompanied by a distinct chill in the room, and sometimes the sailor himself follows. Landlords, landladies, and customers are said to have seen him over the years. He has appeared in the small room adjoining the bar, and customers have reportedly watched the bearded stranger enter a room only to vanish before their eyes. One former landlady experienced something considerably more unsettling. She would wake during the night and find the sailor standing at the bottom of her bed. He did not approach her. He apparently said nothing. He simply stood there in the darkness, watching. It happened more than once. But the strangest encounter associated with the Shipwrights Arms belongs to a former landlord's son, Barry Tester. One cold winter's night, Barry was asleep when something woke him. There was somebody in his bed. Beside him lay the ghostly sailor. The old Jack Tar, who had been wandering the pub for generations, had apparently climbed beneath the covers with him. It is a strangely intimate ending to a much darker story, because the figure haunting the Shipwrights Arms is not said to have died inside the building. His death took place outside. The doorway was the final point of a journey that had begun somewhere out in the Swale. And on winter nights, that same landscape still surrounds the pub. The tide retreats and leaves the mudflats exposed. The channels become black ribbons through the marsh. Wind rattles against the old building, while beyond the windows is little but darkness. Then occasionally, something changes inside. The air becomes colder. There is a smell of tobacco, then rum, then tar. And for a moment, it is easy to picture a sailor somewhere beyond the windows, dragging himself through the mud, towards the only light he can see. The light from a doorway he has been trying to reach for more than a century. Thank you for listening to Ghost Tales by the Fireside. If you enjoy these stories, you can support the podcast and get access to MP3s over on buymeacoffee.com/Ghost Tales. They're £1.50 each, or free if you're a subscriber. You can find everything at ghosttales.co.uk and follow on Facebook and Instagram at Ghost Tales Podcast.